All right, let's take another look through some of the morning's newspapers, joined once again by Emma Wolf and Ava Santina Evans. Emma? Thanks for being with me. Good morning to both of you.
Either.
It's too early. Anyway, where are we going to start?
I think we're going to start with this raid, this dramatic raid. I mean, it's all across the papers. Yeah. Front page of The Sun is saying, you know, the police rummaged through Mandy's drawers. Front page of The Telegraph, the raid on Peter Mandelson's 2 homes. So that was the Regent's Park home yesterday afternoon, and they were also given permission to enter his £1 million Wiltshire home, his rented home there. And, you know, pretty dramatic. They entered in the afternoon. They spent 4.5 hours there. They were pictured, plainclothes officers were pictured leaving with blue plastic boxes, files, documents, other items. He's not been arrested as yet. An interview will probably take place in the next few weeks. But, I mean, this is absolutely swirling. I think the country is kind of watching this unfold. There are so many aspects to this. Of course, at the heart of this all, there are the victims, but there is the political aspect. Many questions about the vetting. Where were these failures? You know, why? According to what the Prime Minister says, you know, if he didn't know, why didn't he know that he was being lied to? All of that. So I think Westminster is an absolute tinderbox at the moment.
Well, yeah, and Ava, you're pretty plugged in at Westminster. What are you picking up about the mood in the party, about how this has been handled?
Well, contrary to Sarah Smith, who you just interviewed, the mood in the party is very febrile. She seemed to be very upbeat and on the Starmer line, on the Starmer bandwagon support, I don't know. But the mood with the rest of the Labour MPs, particularly the backbenchers, is... you're right, it is like a tinderbox. And the problem that you've got is that a lot of these MPs, like Sarah Smith there, she was elected in 2024, so she's the new intake, she's Starmer intake, she's come off the back of the Morgan McSweeney selection process, in part, you know, worked on with Mandelson. And so they are extraordinarily loyal. But then you've got the remainder of the party, the people who've come up through the trade unions, the people who've been on the backbenches for a number of years, who are extraordinarily upset. I don't quite think we're at the point where you're going to have ATMPs publicly declaring their upset or, you know, their wish for a deselection of Keir Starmer as leader. You're not quite there, but it's getting there.
Not quite there because of the issue they're not angry enough about this issue, or because they don't feel that there's an alternative that everyone's going to coalesce around?
I think that we're heading into the Gorton and Denton by-election and we're heading into the local elections, and there's a real concern that you might... while people are extraordinarily angry with Keir Starmer, there's a concern that if you destabilise the leader at this point, you destabilise the bond markets, you're going to have inflation going through the roof. That's really easy, you know, leaflet printing for, you know, opposition parties to leaflet around constituencies, which could lead to even more of a hemorrhaging of seats during the local elections. And I think that's what the concern is. It's like we don't want Starmer in place, but we also don't want to have the Labour record or the Labour foothold destroyed because of it.
But if they lose that seat in Gorton and Denton, I mean, the pressure is going to ratchet up to almost unavoidable levels, right? Surely.
I think that's... If they lose that... To be honest, I mean, like, Labour HQ were kind of briefing a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if they've changed their tune on it.
They're chill about it.
They just sort of were going to let it go. I think that, you know, the feeling... Most of the, HQ that I spoke to, people inside the election campaign there, had told me that they hadn't imagined that the Green affiliation would have been so strong. They didn't see that there was going to be this sort of left-wing insurgency. They really did believe that the threat was solely from reform. And now they've kind of capitulated and said, actually, the Greens just might split our vote, so let's just give up on the seat altogether.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut in at all. That's really interesting. And just to come back to your point, Emma, about how there are so many different levels to this story that, quite rightly, the papers, we are pursuing. But do you feel overall, it's just over a week since that tranche of documents was released, millions of documents. Are the victims getting enough of a voice in this?
I don't think they are, and I don't think we're hearing, and I wonder why, but we're not hearing enough from victims themselves, and I think there's a lot of fear out there. I think there are a lot of maybe young women at the time who have just moved on, who are trying to get on with their lives, who are maybe living in precarious or working in similarly precarious situations out in America. I think there's a real gap at the heart, a sort of vacuum at the heart of... I was thinking about the Harvey Weinstein thing, and so many women, high-profile women, came out and said, "Me Too," during the Me Too movement. And I haven't seen that level of Me Too coming out about Epstein, and I think that's because of the women's own situations. And I think that story is missing, that element to this story is missing.
Yeah, so worth acknowledging that, definitely.
Yes.
All right.
Shall we move on to the mail?
We will, and it's about special educational needs and linking this to the parlous situation that councils find themselves in with funding.
Yeah, this is a really, really difficult situation that the Express are reporting that the Daily Mail, councils are facing a huge gap, a funding gap of around £6 billion. It'll be around £6 billion by 2028. This is over the mounting cost of providing ECHPs ECHPs are the legal document that a child needs to have in order to get the care, the extra care that they need, support in schools for special needs, SEND, as it's called, SEND. There's a forthcoming schools white paper, which is...
It's been forthcoming a while.
It has been forthcoming a while, and union leaders are calling for that to kind of reform the way that everything is funded. There's been a huge, massive growth in EHCPs. They've nearly doubled. They're up to nearly 700,000 since 2019. And I think we've talked about this before. Is it that we are now diagnosing and pathologising normal, difficulties in children's behaviour and in their learning styles and different learning styles and all of that? Or is it that we suddenly have, and if so, why would we suddenly have an explosion in SEND diagnoses, in diagnoses of things like ADHD, autism? I mean, I have a young child, you have a young child, but I also know many primary school teachers who just say, we can't cope. 50% of the class is now on an EHCP.
Yeah.
50% need this extra. Schools can't cope. They don't have the funding. Councils can't cope.
Yeah, and the government says we're increasing funding, but if there is more SEND provision that's needed, that takes up some of the budget, doesn't it? This is a big challenge. Would you agree?
It does, but I do think that also there's a push from parents to have their child diagnosed because of a lack of support in the classroom, and you will be entitled to extra funding and extra help if you do get that diagnosis. So you might have children who are borderline, who would have just benefited from having a teaching assistant within the classroom, who just need a little bit of extra help. But that funding's not available anymore. And so I think that there's this sort of this push to get more.
Yeah.
And there are other factors as well. There's COVID as well, and there's many
Emma,
children.
Thanks both. Next hour we'll do some more. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.